Just Democrats, you also have one of the most conservative Republican senators, Josh Hawley, who says at least please move money around to feed people. Why not consider that?
Because if you deviate from the goal of reopening the entire government, Chuck Schumer and the radicals over there will continue to play games with people's paychecks, their livelihoods. And if you do just part of this, it will reduce the pressure for them to do all of it, to do their basic job, and that is reopen the government.
That was House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday, weighing in on the ongoing government shutdown. A reminder that Johnson sent House lawmakers home more than a month ago with no set return date. This as the Senate has adjourned until Monday. It comes as American military members won't miss a paycheck amid this shutdown, as the White House now says it will tap into 3 separate funding sources to get those troops paid. The Office of Management and Budget says the administration will cover $5.3 billion in military pay, in part by utilizing more than $2 billion from the tax cut and spending bill that was signed into law in July. Another $1.4 billion will come from the Research and Development account at the Pentagon, plus another $1.4 billion from the Department of Defense's procurement account. The New York Times reported billionaire Trump supporter Timothy Mellon also donated $130 million to help cover the costs of military pay during this shutdown. That amount, of course, covers just a small part of the Pentagon's troop pay budget. It's the backdrop to the story we've been talking about all week, and we will talk about with our panel now. Rebecca Piercy, she's the former political director for the Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, that presidential campaign. Also with us, Mark Bednar. He was head of communications for former Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I used to bug him a lot when he was on the Hill. I'm glad that both of you are here because I think you span the political and the Congress so well. I think the biggest question that I've been asking senators all week, and I'll go to you first on this, Rebecca, is just what does it mean that SNAP benefits, people's basic ability to put food in the mouths of themselves and their families, has now become the latest political pressure point? What does that say?
It feels really awful. And I will say, you know, the choices that parents are having to make at this point is which meal are they going to miss, and how are the preschool teachers going to tell the kids they can't come back on Monday because Head Start relies on federal funding. So this is going to have a ripple effect across the country. I think that one of the things we need to realize is these people are across the country. They're in red states, they're in blue states, and that will have a major impact on the way that they are able to live.
But senators aren't moving their votes.
It's incredible to me that I'm glad we're paying troops, but it's incredible to me that the USDA declared on September 30th that there would be money for SNAP no matter how long the shutdown went. And we are now seeing that taken down off of Trump's website and the USDA website saying, like, no, we can't actually do it. And hearing Speaker Mike Johnson say we can't afford to pay people who are on SNAP or who go to Head Start, it just feels kind of gross. Yeah. And so if we are prioritizing a lot of other things that are not feeding our hungry and our poor working families and deciding that early education is not a priority, it makes me wonder, like, who are we as a country? And is this who we have always been? It's never gotten to this point where SNAP is not funded during a shutdown.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of yet another dire impact of this. But I also hear from the folks who know the Hill so well, and you hear this from leadership, you know what it's like to be in those rooms, that this is a leverage point where it does force people potentially to come to the negotiating table. I mean, is that why it's not moving votes? So that people outside of Washington can understand how these folks are thinking.
Well, the simplest way to address every single one of those spending priorities is to vote to reopen the government. And the Speaker knows that, the President knows that, John Thune knows that. And so, we're going to see a couple more days, probably another week or so of the shutdown. I talked to a senior Senate Republican last night. They're pretty confident about the fact that there's more chatter going on between individual rank-and-file senators on both sides. Yeah. But we probably have to get through the election next week. I think Democrats want the record for the longest shutdown. And then they also want to kind of alleviate all those problems. Their own staff, they're going to start missing their paychecks, too.
I don't get the sense that there's a desire to make history on this, but I do understand, and Rebecca knows this so well.
We'll get there.
I do think we're going to get there. I don't think anyone wanted to overtly get there, but at the same time, there's always been a clamoring in the Democratic base to show that they have fight. I think the question that I have for you is, yes, I hear the same chatter about rank-and-file talks picking up. Obviously not enough for them to stay over the weekend, but yeah, I'm hearing the same thing about about maybe middle of next week. But then the president throws in that he wants Republicans to get rid of the filibuster. And I think that sort of tanks the whole equation again, right? I mean, what's the impact of that?
I think there's kind of two elements to it that are pretty interesting. One, this shows that he's now fully re-engaged into this process. And to me, this is a very similar arc, similar timeline to One Big Beautiful Bill, where House passes the bill, throws it to the Senate. The president went on basically a huge foreign policy set within that month of May and June. G7, NATO, the Iran strikes. And then he comes back and then he seals the deal. He gets the job done. Here, he's obviously had major impacts in the Middle East and in Asia. Now the fact that he's back, he can redirect his focus here. And, you know, we even saw yesterday Vice President Vance and Secretary Duffy having a really salient conversation about, you know, what's going to happen to air traffic controllers here. So now I think you see a coalescing of attention back from the administration onto this issue.
The thing that
breaking overnight, with millions of Americans a day away from losing the critical lifeline of SNAP food benefits amid the government shutdown, President Trump is now calling on Republicans to go nuclear. The president posting online, "It is now time for the Republicans to play their Trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option. Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now." The filibuster requires 60 votes to pass funding to reopen the government. Getting rid of it would mean Republicans could pass the bill with a simple majority vote. But it's empty on Capitol Hill this morning, and senators have left town for the weekend ahead of the critical day. Tomorrow marks the first day of open enrollment as well for Obamacare, where health premiums have skyrocketed, a major sticking point for Democrats. And also tomorrow, 42 million Americans who rely on food stamps will see a lapse in benefits, forcing many to go hungry or skip paying certain bills so that they can buy food for themselves and their.
I've been thinking about with the filibuster is I did have a few progressive Democrats in the House say to me that they sort of wanted the filibuster to be nuked right now because there's long been this idea in Democratic circles that it should be gone and it's a relic of the past. Obviously, that was a big debate during the Biden era, and Manchin and Sinema regularly stood up and said, no, we can't get rid of the filibuster. What do you think the Democrats are thinking, looking at the way the president is now saying they should do this? Like, are they happy? Are they sad? I think it's probably a mixed bag.
Nobody's happy, is what I will say. Nobody on the Hill is happy at this point. I think Democrats are wondering, like, who is here to negotiate with me? Because if John Thune is not going to let a Josh Hawley bill on the floor to vote to fund SNAP at this point, who's here? Mike Johnson is not here. Donald Trump has been in Asia. There's nobody to negotiate with. So I think even saying, like, let's get rid of the filibuster, who are we saying that to? Who's going to say yes to it if there's nobody actually in Congress ready to come to the table and do the work? I really do think it is going to be something as dire as, like, air traffic control coming to a total halt across the country that really brings people back to the table. And that's a shame, because it shouldn't be air traffic control. It should be something as simple as SNAP and Head Start and making sure that people are getting the benefits that they so desperately need.
Yeah, I mean, I will say senators yesterday had a lot of their flights canceled and delayed because of this. But what were you going to say?
1.2, President Trump's, I don't know if this is coming down the pike, but just an idea, it's possible. Throw out a reconciliation bill. It's usually not for go around Democrats and then have appropriators. Appropriations process, it's the vegetable of Congress. It's healthy and good for you, but do they always get to it? No. But there's an opportunity with the reconciliation bill where you're basically not using the filibuster, you're circumventing it. Highly unlikely, but that is a route should Republicans want to actually dispose of Democrat votes in this process.
Ultimately, do you think that Republicans are feeling like they're coming out on top in this? Because the polling shows the exact opposite.
I think the fact that the president is back, that he is stateside now, and that he's going to be, he has the opportunity to engage. Between if he can negotiate trade deals with President Xi, I think he's going to be able to be the closer in the room here, too.
I do think the trade deal with President Xi has yet to be signed, so if that's a precursor for the shutdown, we might be here for a
know about it? Like, what are we doing here?
If you listen to the Chinese readout, it might not be as clear-cut as that. But I do think that both sides actually agree on this point, that the president will be the linchpin if and when he decides to actually put forward his position. I think the fact that his position right now is nuke the filibuster shows that he just wants Republicans to do this within their own party without bringing Democrats in.
You can do that with reconciliation without having to touch the filibuster.
Which similarly would be a partisan process, only Republicans. Both of you, I thank you for coming on, for bringing your perspective, for helping us tee up what this might look like coming up. I don't know. Rebecca Piercy and Mark Bednar, thank you both for joining us. But stay, because I told you we do this. Earlier in the show, we asked you, the viewers, why are you awake? Beth emails, I'm up way too early making chicken and waffles for her nursing staff for Halloween. That actually sounds like a very yummy way to start the day.
Where is ours, Allie?
Yeah, where is ours? Please send to us, Beth. Sean sends along this photo and writes, I'm up way too early worrying about costumes for our party tonight, but our dog Ziggy is set. What a cute lion. Oh, this is what I was hoping the viewers would bring on this Halloween morning.
That's great.
It's great. It's so good. And Emily shares this picture and says she's up way too early because Dudley is ready to bark at every trick and especially every treat. That's another good dog.
What a perfect Halloween.
What a perfect Halloween. We did get a Pope puppy yesterday. One of our guests called him his furriness, and I think that was the one to beat.
That's
and those are
right
the winner right now. But those were pretty good contestants, I have to say. I love that this is like a subplot to it.
The ongoing government shutdown under Donald Trump's leadership has become a vivid display of political dysfunction and misplaced priorities. What began as a standoff over funding and partisan posturing has now evolved into a crisis that threatens the stability and dignity of millions, tens of millions of Americans and American families. Trump's latest demand to actually go nuclear again, and also to eliminate the Senate filibuster, only deepens the chaos, revealing not a strategy for governance, but an obsession with power and control and doing whatever comes to his little mind. At its core, the shutdown reflects a moral failure, just basically. 42 million Americans, as a result, are now going to lose their SNAP food benefits just days away. Just days away, they're going to be completely defunded from that, and they're going to have to figure out where to put money. Is it going to go into electricity? Is it going to go into rent? Is it going to go into food for my children? That's what's happening because of this government shutdown. Head Start programs, which serve low-income preschoolers, are now being forced to close their doors. Federal employees are missing paychecks. Their rent can't pay itself. Trump's defenders often claim that the hardline approach is about leverage. It's all for strategy. It's all for political power. Is that worth it? Democrats are going to be forced to negotiate at your table. Is that what it's worth it for you? The healthcare that we lose instead of the food that we lose? What are they going to leverage over? Feeding hungry children should never serve as a bargaining chip. Why are you using that as a bargaining chip, Republicans? You're holding Americans hostage? As Democratic strategist Rebecca Piercy pointed out, these families exist across red and blue states alike. The idea that basic sustenance and early education have now become political weapons for Republicans shows how far Washington's moral compass has drifted. When Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, argues against reallocating funds to feed people because it could reduce pressure on Democrats, it exposes a very cold, disturbing calculation in his mind and in the mind of his constituents. One that prioritizes optics and political power and pressure and negotiation tactics and literally just hurting people over having empathy and caring about American lives. Not saying that the Democrats have the best position here, but they're holding their ground because the ACA benefits are going to be lost completely. And then Trump and the Republicans are just using this as an opportunity to also get rid of SNAP benefits. Trump's use of the military, additionally, as a political shield for him, raises concern. What's he planning to use them for? The administration has diverted billions from Pentagon research and procurement accounts to cover troop pay during the shutdown. He's making sure that the troops are fed. No one else in the federal government, no one else receiving or supposed to receive SNAP benefits is going to get fed. Just the troops to make sure that they remain loyal and that they remain the protectors of America, but I don't think Trump views it that way. Billionaire donor Timothy Mellon was an additional person to step in with some private funds to fill in the gap and to help pay for the troops. So not only are our tax dollars getting spent completely ridiculously, paying only the military and not the rest of the federal government or for SNAP benefits, a billionaire is also filling in that gap and paying personally for our military. Think of the precedent that sets and think of what could happen with that. These symbolic gestures, a billionaire is so kind to give the government, to give the military $100-something million. Yet, these situations highlight much deeper dysfunction and much worse things to come. The government could now potentially receive donations or rely on individual donors' money, their fortunes, their old money to pay for soldiers while millions of civilians face hunger. So if the government shuts down and we aren't receiving food and no one's getting paid in the government, but the billionaires can just step in and reinforce that, how are people going to actually live when they have infinite money and can keep the government shut down for as long as they want? This reflects governance driven completely by spectacle and by misplaced priorities instead of service to the people. And meanwhile, Trump's call to abolish the filibuster, which is a move that allows Republicans to actually pass funding bills with a simple majority, he just wants to get rid of it symbolically. This revolves around removing any additional obstacles to his unilateral power. The filibuster has long served as a check on majoritarian excess and too much spending and too much law breaking and too much law passing. And it ensures that the legislation earns broad support in general instead of the majority becoming complete powerhouses every time they get in power and every time they take office. So by urging Republicans to destroy the filibuster, it basically accelerates that process and allows them to pass more things more quickly. And Trump escalates the shutdown situation into an additional constitutional and institutional crisis. He's attacking from all angles here. Even his own party's leaders, such as Senate Majority Leader John Thune, have refused to back this idea, recognizing that once this rule disappears, nothing prevents the Democrats from using the same tactic when or if they ever return to power. It completely removes another block to using unsustained and infinite power when it comes to Congress and the presidency controlling the Congress. So there would be no opposition, there would be no additional options that the Democrats would even have to oppose the Republicans just pushing through tens, hundreds, thousands of rulings. In the end, the shutdown reflects the human cost of governing through brinkmanship and through following your side above the actual need of the people. The president has made conscious choices, deciding who's worthy of pay, who has to endure hunger or starvation, and who gets paid, who actually gets help, who gets released from prison, who gets a pardon, who actually gets to deserve all of his gifts, including our food and our housing and our healthcare. Who deserves that? Who sucks up to him enough to deserve getting those things? And whose pain can he use? Whose suffering can he use to serve as acceptable collateral or to point and laugh at them as the outgroup in a political fight, in a negotiation? This scenario tests not only the leadership of our country, the presidency, the Congress, the Senate, local leaders, the concept of leadership in general, the institutions. It also challenges our national values. We've long been split, but feeding children, paying federal workers, paying people, having the old and the infirm and, the sick and the children getting fed in our country, that is a country I want to live in. I don't want people going hungry. And this should never depend on political gamesmanship or nuclear options, which includes nuclear testing, again, for some reason, and also the nuclear option of letting tens of millions of people go without food because they rely on a government program that you have to have there because they already get paid too little to afford food from the companies that you allow to exist and pay them that little. Under Trump's direction, the United States now stands trapped in a shutdown that punishes the vulnerable while protecting the powerful.